do schedule here. Hi, folks, and thank you for joining us on episode 3 of our startup program. I'm really pleased to say today I've got two great supporters of the recruitment industry to focus on costs. One of the difficult things about starting your own recruitment agency is the cost of a job board, the cost of job boards overall, and also the cost of committing to tech and a CRM. And I'm really pleased to say I've got the brilliant media buyer, Michelle Davis from Candidate Source here today. Thank you, Michelle. Great supplier to team. And also the co-founder of Gig Hire, Luke Pitkin, who's looking after his auntie's dog today. So we might get interrupted by
hear barking. Yeah, that is me to blame.
We love dogs. So with the challenge here is how to minimize those monthly costs, because CRMs can cost as much as £120 a month per license, and job boards can cost you hundreds of pounds per month, and sometimes you have to commit to a year's contract as well. So we're going to jump straight in. I've introduced you both. To both of you, I want to focus on perhaps job boards and CRMs, but I'm going to come to you first. Michelle, you've been talking to lots of startups over the many years you've been managing director of Candidate Source. It is a huge challenge for them, isn't it? But there's a changing environment now, and you've been, because of your relationship with different job boards, you've been able to maneuver some contracts away from annual, haven't you, to monthly trials and stuff like that. Can you give us a bit of an overview on that?
Yeah, I think for startups, traditionally, they knew what they wanted when they came in. So normally it was somebody who'd worked for another recruitment agency, or they'd got very much in mind niche, knew what they wanted to do. So when they contacted us when they were starting up, it was, I know what job boards I want to use. I've got a good idea of what volume I'm going to need, what commitment, and it was a little bit easier. And then in the last 2 years, when feels at the minute like the world's a little bit shook up, that's changed in that people perhaps what they started out as a startup doing might not be what they're doing in 3 months' time. They'll pick up vacancies that they perhaps weren't expecting. We've got agencies now that are coming back to the retained way of working rather than contingency, which is, again, different. So we see now a lot more startups that need flexibility, who cash flow, they don't want to commit their cash flow. They don't want to commit themselves to what job boards they're going to work with, what niche sectors they're going to work with, whether they're going to be general or not. So we've had to come up with something that's got a lot more flexibility than saying, right, you're going to work with this job board, and to get the price down, you're going to sign for a 12-month contract. And that's where the pay-as-you-go model has come in for startups, both with jobs and database.
Yeah. One of the things that we promote, and some percentages might be wrong on my banner here, is that through our deal that you've negotiated for team members, we can get up to 70% discount, can't we, from the major job boards?
Yes, because
is that similar on a month-by-month basis?
Yeah, I mean, the pay-as-you-go is slightly more expensive than if you committed, but it's going to be, because if you're making a 12-month commitment and you're buying volume, the cost is going to be considerably less. But because we've got the buying power of team behind us, and we can combine the buying power of all the members. Even the pay as you go, where you're not making a commitment and we're only billing you once you've used it, you're still seeing discounts of between 50 and 70% on what it would be to buy one on a job board. Yeah.
One of the things that that possibly a team leader or manager or even an employee that was a successful consultant moving over to start his or her own business, they may not even ever know what it costs to buy the price of a job ad.
No, I mean, I was per temps for years, and the price that they were paying when I moved away from a large agency and saw what you paid for maybe 5-10 postings a month, it's a real shock of how much it can cost if you're a smaller agency.
I remember when I took over Principal People back in 2010, I couldn't believe the prices that were being charged for a tiny recruitment business. And thank God I joined team that I got introduced to you, Michelle. And I think our average cost, we were paying about £60 or £70 an advert at that point, and that dropped to under £20 when we bought through you. So what's it like to buy from some of the major job boards now? What's a unit price?
I mean,
if you're not in team,
so
and a startup.
For a startup, if you wanted to go on a job board and buy one job, you'd go online and on average, you'd probably pay about £70 a job for a 28-day advert. Now, to be fair, the job boards haven't got it easy at the minute because it's like, for some people, it's like looking for unicorns. It's incredibly difficult to find candidates. The competition's out there. So for the job boards, this isn't easy. So, we talk about the cost of advertising, but they are looking for things at the minute that are quite difficult to find. I'm not saying that the price is easy, but it's not a case of, they take your money and they've got candidates from everywhere.
Yeah.
And to be fair, the thing about buying online from a job board is that you've got no account management. So as a startup, you're in it on your own. You go on the job board, you buy the posting, and everything's sort of your own thing. Whereas obviously through us, that doesn't happen because you've got permanent account management. Yeah.
So to help, a question directly to you then, Michelle, before we bring Luke in. You've helped countless agencies get better visibility for less. What's the biggest mistake people make when buying job board ads, and how can they avoid it?
I think not knowing your ROI on your existing advertising is the biggest mistake that people make. Yeah. So they'll come out of an agency. That agency will have always used a particular job board, and they instantly commit 12 months worth of advertising with one job board, and they're not proving the concept, or that what they think they want at the beginning doesn't work. So for a lot of agencies, I still get established agencies. And I had a conversation the other day with a team member. At the end, I did tell him I might as well talk to my dog because it would have more sense. I have a good relationship with him. But it was like, he was going, well, does this price suit? And I was saying, well, what's your return on investment? If you're making £10 for every pound you've spent, then it's a good deal. If you're making 50p for every pound that you've spent, and when they were looking at the figures, they hadn't got a clue. Candidates were coming in, they knew what they were placing, but they didn't know where they'd come from. And for me, that's the biggest mistake that people do when they come into startups, is that they don't use free trials, they don't use pay as you go, they just go straight in and make a commitment. And it's very difficult then to know what you're spending your money on is what's going to deliver in time.
You've just picked up on something then. So you can offer free trials for these startups so that they can test different
Yeah,
job
of course. So we can give free trials on database and on advertising. During your free trial, either us or the job board will have a look at your advert, because it doesn't matter what job board you use, really. Your advert's got to be written well. So this is what I mean about, we don't just leave you, we don't just sell you the advertising and go, there you go. We'll have a look at your adverts. We'll talk you through the free trial. And then at the end of the free trial, we can say, right, what have you had? What have you got? How's that worked? If you'd paid for it, what would you have spent compared to, at that stage, if you got anybody an interview, if you got anybody in your database. So yes, free trials is where we'd start and then move on to the page you go.
Good stuff. Luke, how long's Gig been around now? Because it's globally, it's had a real impact, hasn't it, since you guys have kicked off?
Yeah, well, slowly globally, but mainly focused in the UK, I would say at the moment. Yeah, we've been around for 5 years. So 2020 we started. I've been actually trying to do something in this space since 2017. So I left full-time employment in 2017. But what I did before didn't work out. So 2020 was when Gig was formed. We did something different for the first couple of years, which again didn't really fly. And we've switched to what we do today, which is that whole ethos of giving away something for free to help people get started. That's about 2.5, 3 years old.
Yeah, and how many people have you got using the Gig Hire products? I say products because all of the products.
Yeah. So our free stuff, we have about 870 recruiters around the world.
Wow.
Well, I checked the other day, and I classified that by 870 people that are at least logging in 2 to 3 times a week and using the tool. So there's 870 of them worldwide. And then the paid stuff, we've got 234 businesses, I think it is now, that utilize the paid versions of Gig. Yeah. And they vary. Like typically we're in and around the 1 to 5 to 10 bracket, but we now have agencies as big as 20 that use us. So we're kind of moving into that bigger organization space now as well.
I think it's good to share that because it shows you people can jump in with the free stuff when they start, when money is tight, but they can also stick with you and scale thereafter. What are people saying to you about the current market at the moment? And is your target avatar are they startups or are they established solos and micro businesses? Where do they come
I would say our target is definitely the SME space, really, is broad, but really the solos that are just starting out, that obviously looking for something for free to get started. That's where we kind of originally, we would focus our main efforts. Businesses of 1 to 5, I would say. The honest answer in terms of what people are saying to me is I feel like there's a level of optimism that's coming back to the recruitment industry this year. The last 2 years has been a lot of doom and gloom or a lot of negativity, especially for the smaller businesses. I'd say smaller businesses still find it tough, but there are green shoots, I think, for certain people. I was speaking to one of our users who started with us in January. I was speaking to them a few months ago, and in their Q1, they did 5 deals with 3 new clients in their first quarter. So they came out of the blocks really quickly. By the sounds of things, that individual works really, really hard. They put a lot of graft in, but there's definitely those stories that I'm starting to hear now where people are like, things are getting better. Although I would say there is definitely still an element of it's tough.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you for that. I'll come back to you in a second. I want to go back to Michelle, if you can. You touched on something, Michelle. A couple of things I wanted to query you on. It's all very well buying a job ad, but I see a lot of vanilla job ads out there. In terms of, can you give a couple of tips and guidance to startup recruiters who may not have been involved in writing job ads? That might have been somebody else's job in their big agency, and you see a lot of vanilla, fairly poorly worded job ads, don't you, all the time on job boards? Could you give 2 or 3 tips for the startup? Because these boys and girls are going to be they're going to be spinning so many plates. They're business developing, they're organizing job ads, they're finding candidates, they're matching, they're credit controlling, they're they're doing their monthly accounts. So they're doing lots of new jobs, and they might not be focusing so much on the quality and design and content of a job ad. So can you give any tips?
Don't use ChatGPT. That would be my first tip.
Okay.
Stop filling your adverts up with bloody emojis, because nobody's going to apply for a job with a load of emojis. That's my favourite at the moment. I went out to see a client, and they actually put an advert up, and I had to say, can you take that off? It's offending me. And they'd gone into ChatGPT. They had put in a salary, a location, and a job title, and then said to ChatGPT, optimize this advert as much as you can. And that's what they'd used. So it was full of job titles, which is pointless. It had got lots of locations in, which is pointless, and salary. So ChatGPT is there to polish your advert once you've written it, but it is not there to write your advert, because ChatGPT doesn't know your client, doesn't know what you're looking for, doesn't know what you need. So for me, if I was saying to a startup, one thing about writing an advert, it would be make sure you take a good job spec. Because the number of people I sit in front of and they go, I'm struggling to write an advert. And I say, right, that's fine. Tell me about the job. And they'll tell me the location, the salary, and the job title. And they'll tell me what the client's looking for. And I go, right, and what's in it for the candidate? And they've taken none of that. And ChatGPT can't give you that information. So for me, for a startup, get to know your client, which then isn't just about writing an advert. It's about building relationships with your client, understanding the right people to put in front of them, understanding the culture, what they get, what they need, and what's in it for the candidate. And then write your advert based on what the candidate wants to know, not what the client needs. And just turning your advert like that and putting some information in about the culture, the job, where you're going to be working, what you're going to be doing, what's in it for you, the benefits, all of those things sell the job to the candidate. And that really is what consultants should be focusing on.
Yeah, you've run some great sessions for us and our members, haven't you, before, on how to write a good job ad.
Yes.
And we've also, we've done some wonderful work with Mitch Sullivan as well, one a great copywriter for recruiters, who says it should all be about the candidate.
Yes, that's who you're trying to attract. You're not trying to attract the client, and you're certainly not trying to sell yourself. So the number of recruitment agencies who 3/4 of the advert is about how wonderful they are. We are working for a prestigious client. This is a fantastic opportunity. It means nothing, absolutely nothing. It's what we call peacocking, just showing off. Just write it as the candidate wants it is the one thing that I would say, and that will instantly get you a better response.
The second question I wanted to raise with you, because you referred to it in there, we've been talking about the cost of job ads, but the other thing I wanted to focus on was which I used to use a lot of, and so did my resources at Principal People. We used to use the CV databases a lot. Yes. With and I've heard that some people aren't using those as much now, and I think I can't understand that. And there are fewer jobs around now than there were 2.5 years ago, after the boom we had. Yes. After COVID, I think we're about 30% down on jobs from 2 years ago, but there's still 900,000 jobs live, but there weren't the 1.25 million that were. Yeah. So you're fighting over candidates. If people are on job boards with their CVs, that's a great way to search, isn't it? And I just wondered if that feedback I had is, are people just buying job ads, or are people still sensibly, I think, buying the database access?
No, we sell databases, just, in the same proportion as we've always done.
Okay.
What we're seeing a lot more of is that people are getting wiser with the watchdogs.
Yeah.
So because there is competition for good candidates, if a candidate adds their CV to a database, then you need to be on that.
Yeah.
So setting up a watchdog means that you get an alert every time, as long as your watchdogs are effective. We had somebody set up a watchdog and they just put the number 7 in the search because they thought that would bring back everybody who'd got a mobile phone, because all UK mobile phone numbers are a 7, and then couldn't understand why it wasn't the most effective of CV searches. But the other thing we do, obviously, for team members is that you can pay per download on all of the big job boards. So rather than going and buying a license for startups, you can set that watchdog up with a particular job board. You can see what comes through, and you've only got to pay for what you download rather than the license for startups as well.
Okay, cool. Thank you. That's really helpful. Luke, I'm going to come back to you, sir, if I can. One of the things, we talked about the challenges for new recruiters and the cost and that. So the brilliant thing is you offer this free CRM for recruitment businesses, and you've got 870 of them globally using that now. It is a steep learning curve for startups because they have no idea how much their company used to pay for Bullhorn or some of those other Mercury and those other things, and they like what they used before because it's easy to migrate and transfer and use the workflow. But then they get shock horror pricing quotes from those businesses. So it's a steep learning curve for them. What makes your free CRM truly usable from day one, especially for those solo recruiters or new businesses?
Yes, good question. So in terms of it being truly usable, we've made it as frictionless as possible to start with to get access to it. So I think you can open an account. I've done a video that's how to open a free CRM. It's a 3-minute video which shows you how you can just access the system with an email address. Give us an email address, you're good to go. So that first part was important to me because I think when you're a small business, I personally wouldn't want to sit on 2, 3, 4 demo calls to then an account management call to then have your account set up. It's just too long. So the first thing is we'll make it as quick as possible to get in there. Then it's what makes it truly usable, I would say, is the ability to be able to tag data and then run searches. Because for us, it's a balance, right? Because we want to give something away for free that's truly usable, but we need to make our paid stuff attractive at the same time so we can survive. But what we've tried to do with the free stuff is say, you can put unlimited candidates, companies, contacts, jobs in there. You can track those as much as you need to. Then you can tag them in whichever way you want. It's customized tagging. That then allows you, if you get a new job that comes in, you can run a search on the system to say, I'm looking for this person in this geographical location, these skill sets, and it will pull you up a list of candidates. So I wanted to give recruiters the ability to be able to filter that data quickly so that if they've got it on an Excel sheet, it's difficult to filter, right? With us, you can go, okay, I've got 25 candidates in my database that are matched. That's point number one. The second thing is we have pipelines that recruiters can use, which I think is really valuable. So we have an interview pipeline where they can see the tickets for all the candidates they're interviewing. It's like a drag and drop thing. We also have a business development one as well. So they can put in leads of companies that they want to work with, and they can drag those through the process as they're pitching to them. The third thing is then it tracks commissions. So if you're logging a hire, it will then keep that in a table, and you can say, these are all the hires that we've done. These are the start dates. These are the final salaries. This is what we make. That spits onto a dashboard for you. So you get an overview of your performance for the year. So again, as a solo, it's like, here's what you've sold this year. And this is when you've made the sale. So I think that's important. And then the last thing that I think is on the free version, which is useful for solos, is you can integrate your email. If you're an Outlook or a Gmail user, or I should say Office 365 or Gmail user, you can connect your email, and then the system will track all email communication against your candidates and your contacts, so that if you need to go back in and look at a later date of when did we send that candidate to that contact or whatever it is. There's a record in the system of that so that you can utilize that. So that's like a due diligence piece. So it's the tagging, the searching, the pipelines, the tracking of the commission, and the email confirmation and tracking. Cool. That's all on the free.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to ask you both this one, but I think Michelle's going to duck away a little bit. When it comes to setting up a really lean tech stack, what 3 tools, non-negotiable tools, would you recommend every recruiter should have in place? It doesn't have to be on day one, but I'd be interested to hear what you think about that.
I've got to take the diary, so that would probably be more Luke than me.
Back it straight over to me. I had a question for you actually on writing job ads, which if we get time, remind me. Yeah. So for me, if I start at the top, it's really boring. But I would say that Office 365 account is the first thing to go for. So I think Office 365 do like a business account where for $9.95, I think it's $9.95, it's about £9 a month. You get your emails, you get your Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all of that. The reason, it sounds obvious, but the reason I highlight that is because we get so many users that go to places like GoDaddy or Wix and they pay for their emails to be set up there. And then they don't have any access to the Microsoft suite. And then actually the email through Wix or GoDaddy comes with complications. So like the first thing I would say to solos is go direct to Microsoft for your email, your Office, your Word, all of that kind of stuff. Website is the second thing. So they're 2 things that I think most businesses need, right? The Office suite and the website. Really simple, really affordable. You can get your website with us, or you can do it with Wix or GoDaddy for really cheap. If you then obviously I'm going to say CRM, right? To get so that you've got like all of your candidates and your data stored correctly. But then if I was going to go for, if I was then starting out, the 2 tools I would look at now, and I'm not going to go super AI heavy, but I use Claude AI and I find it fascinating. I could do another conversation with people on what I would use it for as a solo recruiter. I think it's like $20 a month. And there's so many time-saving things that I use it for that I think solo recruiters could use it for. So for $20 a month, I think that's worth looking at. And then the other thing that I think is Apollo IO. Apollo IO is like a place where they're basically a data center. No, not center. Like a database where you can pull lists from. On Apollo, you can do mobile numbers, email addresses, lists of candidates and clients. And it also does email outreach. Now it's $90 a month, cancel any time. But when I was looking at starting as a solo recruiter, I found that really valuable for mobile phones because I think it's getting harder to get to people. And I found that tool really useful to be on someone's LinkedIn, say on Apollo, get the mobile phone number. And I found that really valuable. So yeah, there's a few things there. Obviously Outlook, website. I said the Claude AI is really useful for me. And then CRM and Apollo. It's probably where I'd go, and all of that's £100, just round about a month. It's
that Apollo IO might be something they take up after they hit a few, done a few deals, because I know it's if you're going to use it properly, you're going to have it every month, aren't you? You're not going to be dipping in.
You could use it for a month, right? You could say, actually, I want it for a month and then I want to downgrade, and you could get some data. Because I think sometimes for recruiters starting out, it's like if they've got no data, it's that initial like momentum of where am I going to get my data from? How am I going to start reaching out to people? That can be a valuable tool to just get the wheels in motion for that. But they might say that the £90 is too much, but they do have a free version that you can look at as well. So I'd recommend jumping in on the free version, having a look around. You might decide it's worth a month or not.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. That was really comprehensive. I really appreciate that.
Oh, thanks.
And I might come back to you for another session on Claude AI. That'd be really interesting. We could do something on that with the team members. To both of you again, avoiding long-term cost traps. You've both seen where people overspend or sign job board contracts or bad contracts, whether it be CRMs and other tech products as well. Can you share a horror story, anonymized, on what others can learn from it?
Oh, I can share my horror story if you want me to.
Why not? Well, one of your many, you mean, Rochelle?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that I've got a paper diary will tell you how good I am with tech. I mean, a pen and a pad. I don't understand anything else. And when we started, pad and pen. Why do you want? When we started up, the one thing I would say to startups is every man and his dog can offer you everything. Singing and dancing, everybody knows it all. Everybody's going to get you billing within a year. And we were quite naive. So we took Sage for reasons unknown, because we were small people doing maybe 20, 30 invoices a month. Christ knows why we had Sage, but somebody talked us into it. Then you get a bit wiser and you know what's going on. And we had Salesforce because we needed that a few years on. And we had to then migrate Sage into Xero. And it cost me at the time an absolute fortune, because the one question we didn't ask when we bought any technology was, how scalable is it? So this is what it does now. If I need it to do this in the future. So everybody was going, buy this because it will do this in the future. And really, I'd have said, I don't want to buy it in the future. I just need this little bit. And that's all I want to pay for now. And as I scale up, is it scalable? Or if it's not scalable, how easy is it to get the data moved over to something else? Because what we found was that some products that we bought were written in Greek, and they actually needed to be written in Latin to get them moved over to something else. And that seriously cost me a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of hassle. So, yeah, for me, scalability and the fact that if you do need to move the data, that you can, because, we massively messed up on that.
We don't want to dwell too much on accounting products, but I know when I bought Team, we were with Sage. They had Sage, and I knew you used to be with Sage, and you'd migrated to Xero, and when Rachel Conroy joined us as our finance manager, she said, "Why are you on Sage? Move to Xero straight away." And our accountant said, "Oh, you want to do it next year?" And Rachel said, "No, we're going to do it next month," and did it. And she did it in a day. It was fabulous.
But it wasn't just the accounting. The system we were using for our CRM, you couldn't migrate into Salesforce. Oh. So we had weeks of sitting, which was great because we cleansed the data. But, when anything, CRM, anything you're buying, where if you're getting your website built, make sure it's built in a language that other people use. I've heard the words WordPress. Don't know what it means, but apparently that's what you want on your web. Technical, not me. But anything you need to think about if you ever need to move stuff in your data, because otherwise it's a nightmare.
No, good. That's wise. Thank you for that. So anything I got that question. This is scalable. I had these all written down, Luke. So, here we go. What advice would you give, Luke, for someone evaluating free versus paid? And how do you balance cost savings but with functionality? And why do people move from your free product, up to your paid products? And what's the differentiator there?
So the question initially was, when evaluating free versus paid, what should you consider? Was that and why
we'll take one at a time. Cool.
Yeah. No, my brain processes things individually, so I was trying to stay on top of it. I think when you're evaluating free versus paid, for me, it would come down to, with the CRM, it would come down to the time saving element. Will it save me time? Will it help me to manage things better? Is the way that I would look at it. Reason being is, when you're a solo or small business, your time is everything, right? We have that today. Like, whenever I'm looking at a product for us, it's like my time is really important. Would spending £20, £30, £40, whatever the figure is, would that save me 40 quid's worth of time a month? That's the way I'd look at it. A lot of people, I think, go, oh, will it make me money? Like, you can sit there with an automation tool and say, right, okay, I can use Dripify. That might bring me candidates or clients. Was that going to make me money? But I'd be looking at it from like a CRM perspective of, will it save me time? You know, because if you say your hourly rate is 80 quid or 60, whatever your hourly rate is, that you would say your time is worth, does that £40 save you that time? If it does, then it's worth the switch, in my opinion. Because to be brutally honest with you, then to move to your second question, that is probably one of the reasons why people switch to our paid stuff, because everything on the free version of Gig is very manual. So you have to, all the data entry is manual. All of the tracking, all of the email sending is manual. Everything is done by basically you as the machine. So it's free, but the free version costs you more time. And when people are in a position where they're like, oh, I've got a little bit of spare cash, they switch to the paid model. And that does things like allows you to pull data from LinkedIn straight into the CRM. So instead of adding data manually, you can click a button when you're on LinkedIn, it will pull the profile straight in. They can drop CVs in. It's going to parse the data. They can set email automation up to fire emails out and follow up with candidates and move through processes. So the reason of like switching typically is because people are looking for that ability to save some time, I think, and automate a few processes back office wise.
Cool.
Long-winded answer.
Question for you, Michelle, about CRMs. What's one feature? What's one feature most recruiters underutilise, do you think, in their CRM or job board setup that could actually save them money?
Where the candidates come from. I mean, I used to work for a large agency, and I worked for them when job boards were introduced. And all of their candidates were on the CRM system as a walk-in, because when they rang them, when the application came through, whoever, Monster, Work Thing at the time, I am that old, they'd then ring the candidate and say, can you come in and register? Candidate would go in and register, and they'd put them on the CRM as walk-in. So when it came to which job boards work for you, they hadn't got a clue. And you know, the guy I was talking to last week, I said, I might as well talk to my dog. They just didn't interrogate on their CRM who they'd placed. And it's not just placements. From your CRM, you should look at who you've interviewed and who you've placed, because people that were good enough to be interviewed should affect your return on investment. But for me, a CRM system, just logging where you've got your candidates from, massively helps when it comes to making the commitment of a job board, because it's only expensive if you're not getting anything from it. If you're getting candidates from it, it's not expensive. But without a CRM, logging that information is a nightmare, even from a non-tech like me. CRMs, that's a problem.
Is there any value, Michelle, in tracking the applications received versus what the ratio would be to actually then sent to client? Is there any benefit in that? Because I would potentially do that, but I'm like, is there any value in knowing we got 10 and we only sent 2? I
had an interesting conversation with a client last week who they'd used the ad hoc package. So that's where we write the advert, we advertise it, and we filter the response. But for whatever reason, they'd said they didn't want us to filter the response. They wanted to do it themselves. And when we rung them up, we said, how was it? And they said, oh, no, it was crap. You know, we don't use job boards, and now we know why. And we said, right, okay, what have you got from it? And he said, well, we've got one on interview. We've got 2 that we've put in the database. So we said, from one advert, how is that? How's that crap? And he said, because I've had 40 people that I've had to wade through that were no good.
Interesting. So
I think if you monitor the number of applications you get, the problem with that is that you go, oh, I had 100 people apply on that job. I've had to wade through all of them. I don't want to use that job board again because we get a lot of applications. But if you've got 100 people have applied, but you've got 2 placements and you've added 3 people to your database, then you're sort of losing the benefit because you've had to crawl through 100 people. So for me, the 2 bits that I'd be monitoring is who was good enough to speak to, because if they're good enough to speak to and they're good enough to add to your database, then to me, that is of value, because you might use them in 6, 12, 18 months' time. And obviously who you've placed then gives you, your actual money back for your advert. But number of applications, I'm not sure what the value is. I'd rather have 2 applications and one be usable than 100 applications and nobody generate video. So I'd be more likely the top end than applications.
Yeah, I think as well. Sorry, Simon, if I'm speaking out of turn. That your point on ROI is massive, and we do exactly the same thing for tech within our business. So we track every tool that we use, what it costs us per month, and what our total is, and we review that once a quarter, and we say, right, we've got all these tools. Oh, actually, we've not used that in ages. Get rid of it. What's the ROI on that? Are we seeing the return for what we're spending? And I think for anyone that's starting out, like, to do that from the job board perspective and a tech perspective is super valuable, because I think a lot of recruiters will go, I need, £3,000 a month to pay my bills. But actually they're also spending 600, 700, 800 quid a month on tech. So it's like, actually, you've got to remember in your cash flow, like, you've got all this tech that you need to account for as well. And I think there's probably lots of solos, like we did it in the early days, just were signing up for stuff and then never knew what the cost of it was. So having that exercise now of like, this is what we use. Do we get value from it? Do we actually use it? And if not, we cull it. Is, I think, useful for recruiters, because like you say, Michelle, everyone, including us, wants to come in and sell you something and promise you the world, right?
And then the thing is that's a startup. It's like, it's 45 quid here, it's £20 there, it's a tenner here. Everybody's going, oh, well, we'll do this for 35. Oh, 35 quid, that's good. And then somebody else comes along. And then all of a sudden you look and you think,
600 quid.
Where's that money going? So I think from a cost point of view, there's always got to be a return on investment. Something might be £1,000, but if you're then getting £2,000 worth of value, that's actually better than spending 20 quid. And we're buggers for it. I've got stuff going out and I think, oh, we signed into that for 3 years. We used it for a month. And we've never touched it again. So I think anything like that, you've got to evaluate your return on investment, every single thing that you spend.
Cool. Now that's grand. Thank you for that. And we recruiters we're a bit like magpies, aren't we? We do like a bit of, we love a bit of tech. You've just got to be so careful. But I think if you should always ask tech suppliers for a free trial. Otherwise, tell them to go away, because most of the time they will give it to you, even if they don't offer it. And that free trial should be, did I get value out of this, and what was the value it made? But don't sign up to yearly or multi-year contracts. We signed up for a contract which I wasn't very comfortable with a supplier, and there was an auto renew that I didn't
that's
recognize. So be careful. That's the other thing I would add: auto renew. Yes, you've signed an annual contract, but if you don't cancel that within 3 months of the date, the annual date, you automatically renew. So be careful of those. Moving on to both of you. Let's be optimistic. We've got these startup recruitment companies. They're building their pipelines. They're making some success. So they're looking to scale smart. Now that might be with people or just doing more business. When it's time to grow, how should recruiters think about adding tools without getting bloated or locked in? I know that's a tough one, but any tips or guidance that you can give, or a bit like we've just discussed, not signing up for things on a long-term basis.
I think for me, it's like that is one of them. Like looking for products that do offer flexibility, because I think there's loads out there. The other thing I heard the other week that I thought was good was asking for a break clause in the contract. There was a recruiter that I spoke to that had signed up to a 24-month agreement with a CRM provider, and they asked, and I was chatting to them, and they said, luckily we asked for a break clause, and they gave us a 12-week break clause. And I thought to myself, that's a really good one, because a lot of CRMs will be like, they'll want to sell the 12-month. And I think if you ask them for that break clause, they'll probably go, oh yeah, we'll give you one to get the deal across the line. And it gives you that safety net to get away from it. Like what you said, Simon, get a free trial something out, and then it comes back to the ROI. I think make sure you track it, because if, like Michelle said, if you can say, okay, we've got to pay £100 a month for subscription to this product for 10 consultants, that's £1,000, but you can prove that it makes you money, then it's worth it.
We tried some tools recently. We didn't get a free trial, but you could pay monthly. Once we kept paying monthly for a couple of months, then we moved to a yearly contract to pay, and it actually gave us 30% discount on the monthly. So we tried it. We paid. We didn't have a free trial, but we pay monthly at £44 a month. But the price dropped 30% once we did it, and we moved to a year. But that was one. And Michelle, anything from you on that?
I think return on investment is important, but I think as a startup, the other thing that you should really be looking at is how good the account management is with anything that you buy. Because as a startup, you are reliant on that person's skills. You are reliant on their knowledge. And you want to be working with suppliers that you can pick up the phone and know that somebody's going to help you there and then. And somebody who knows a bit about the industry. So you might ring up for saying, oh, look, with this CRM, I need this, this, or this. And, Luke will speak to them and go, well, I can help you with that bit and we can fix that bit. But actually, the bit that you need isn't a CRM. The bit that you need is this. I know somebody who can help you. There's a lot of people, unfortunately, in the industry who are sign a deal and then to speak to somebody to get some help, to get support is a nightmare. So I think during that free trial, you should be assessing how good the customer service is, because that's as important as the product itself when you need help or you need advice.
Yeah. Cool. That's a great point.
Thank you. Good.
No, really good. The other question I had, how can recruiters measure whether a tool is actually driving business? I think we've covered that. I just want to close now with some actionable tips, if we can. If someone's starting in their recruitment agency tomorrow, what's the one tool and mindset shift they need to launch lean and stay profitable? Or the one doesn't need to be a tool. It needs to be the one thing. If they're starting an agency tomorrow and they're new to it, so they're not a business owner before, they're a new business owner, they're an experienced recruiter, what's the mindset shift they need to launch lean and stay profitable? What would you say?
I think it's what you said there, stay lean. I think that is the initial mindset that you have to take. Like I said at the start, I've been trying to do something in this space for 2017 and I failed. And then you've had like Brexit and COVID and like things just never work out the way you want to. So I think if you can, I've always had that mentality of do as much as we can and keep the costs as low as possible, because it gives you time. Like if you sign up and you spend 700 quid on tech a month, that's going to eat into your cash reserves a lot faster than if you keep that really low. So I would say that. I'd also say and this feeds into team a little bit, but talk to people around you that have done it before. Message the people in team, message the people that are further down the track to you and say, hey, this is where I am. This is what I'm thinking about doing. Has anyone bought this product before? Has anyone implemented it? Does it work? Like ask those people that are like 2 or 3 steps ahead of you, because they will feed you the lessons and say, yeah, that works. Or no, don't touch that. Luke's a knob. Don't work with gig. They'll feed that honest feedback to you straight away. I see
that a lot in the chat.
Yeah, there you go. See, prime example, right? But it's true. It's like speak to the people that have had 2 or 3 steps ahead.
Yeah, no, you're right. Our solo WhatsApp group, which involves the startups, they're all the new new kids on the block are asking the rest of the network, which CRM should I get? What's valuable? Or I've had a demo with this. It looks good. What are your thoughts? So that within team, there's a bit of an umbrella of trust where you can do that, and sometimes you can't in other networks. Michelle, anything to add?
4 people. Also.
Yeah.
Go on, Luke.
No, what I was going to say to you, Simon, this is true. I've done 4 demos with people from team that have said to me they will only utilize team recommended products.
Yeah,
really,
which I thought was really interesting. Yeah, I
I'd
spoke
love
to 4
know
people.
Who they are.
Oh, do you know what? I can't remember. To be fair, I could probably dig around my notes. But yeah, when I spoke to them,
I'd love to thank them for that. I'd love to thank them for that.
But
so
when we were new as a supplier, they were like, we will only engage with people that are approved with team.
Yeah,
which I thought
that was good of them. That was good. So Michelle, what mindset shift would you give to a new startup?
Don't spend it if you haven't got it. Don't spend any money on the basis that your business plan says you will be making X. And the other thing is, and it's a really practical one, put your money away for the tax man. Because the number of people who we speak to and they go, oh, I'd forgotten, every month what you've earned is great. You put your bit away for your tax man and then you haven't got to worry. But don't spend it if you haven't got it. Because that to me is the one thing with a startup. You've got to be so mindful of your cash flow.
Episode 1 was about setup, and we had Paul Chamberlain on from JMW, but Stuart was on from ICAI, the accounting and finance advice, and he said, for all your VAT, and he said, have a separate account. As soon as you collect the VAT from your client, which is cash flow for you, he said, tuck it in your every bank will have a deposit account. Tuck it in the deposit account. Don't touch it. It'll earn you some interest. And when VAT is ready to pay, you'll have all you need, because you can you'll be offsetting as well. So all that money in the VAT account, you won't have to send it all, because you can counter that with your own costs, and it doesn't need to go. So that's a great tip. I'm just going to give you a couple more questions, folks. What's a question every recruiter should ask? And we've sort of covered this a little bit, but there might be another one. Should ask before signing a contract. My one would be, is there an auto renewal? Because I didn't ask it, and I got caught out by it. And we were one day into the new renewal, and I've resigned for next year, so I'm not caught twice. Is there anything you should advise? What question any recruiter should ask before signing any contract?
For job boards, it's definitely what happens to the cost if you use all your inventory within the 12 months. Because I've seen job boards load the cost if you go out during the 12 months. So for me, it's what happens if I need more during the year. What are the costs?
That's cool. Could you go to monthly after that, or are you still tied in with that contract?
No, because you get billed based on what you buy. So if you've only got 2 months left and you're only buying 20, some job boards will charge you based on what you originally signed up for. Some job boards will just charge you for 20. And in my opinion, that's naughty, because I've made my commitment. If anything, I'm buying more, so they should be less. They won't be, but that's naughty. So that's definitely something to check when you're dealing with job boards.
No, thank you for that. That's cool. Luke, anything for you?
I think we've covered it really. For me, it would be the flexibility of like, how do I get out of it if it doesn't work for me? Because I think, like I say to everyone when I demo the product, I'm like, before you commit, go and play around with the free version, even if you're thinking of going for the paid, because it's one thing seeing a demo, but when you actually get into the product yourself, you might find it works for you, it doesn't. So I'd always be saying, how do I get out of this? Or what's my flexibility to downgrade or walk away if it doesn't work? Because I think flexibility is important for small businesses.
I think that's cracking advice. When I bought Principal People, we had a CRM which was awful, and I took some advice from someone to move to another CRM, which worked well for them, but it was a completely different type of business, and I wasn't tech savvy enough to really understand. And it was before I joined team as well, so I didn't have the community to share the knowledge with. So we jumped into another CRM, which was better, but I stuck with that for the next 5 years while we were building the business, and then we were in an earnout when I'd sold the business, and I thought, I'm not going to change CRM in the earnout. And my lovely guys who ran the business after I left, having sold Principal People, said we moved to they moved to Job Adder actually and they just said if we'd moved to Job Adder 5 years ago, Simon, you'd have got another £1 million on the earnout, because it's so much better than the clunky thing I bought, which wasn't right for us. So if you're careful, you'll get stuck with the system. And I loved your idea, Luke. If someone's going to sign you up for a year or 2 years, it is fair to say, look, we've had the demo, it looks good, but can we have a 12-week,
break clause?
Clause. I love that idea. And a lot, if they're a good company and they're confident in their product, they'll give you that. If they're not confident in their product, you should challenge them on it. So I think it's a real cool one. Right. I'm just last question, I promise, guys and girls. Can you share one resource, be it a checklist, a vendor, or a dashboard, that attendees can start using today to optimize their tool spend? Or an idea. It might not be a checklist, it might not be a vendor, it might not be a dashboard, but just an idea to optimize their spend, I would say. Doesn't need to be tool spend.
I'm not allowed to answer Excel spreadsheet and you just write what you're spending and the explanation down the side. I've still got that and I'm 15 years in. So probably something slightly more technical than that, Luke.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? I got this question last night and I thought, I'm going to create a guide. I was like, I'm going to put down everything I've ever used, because I've used like a free accounting tool, which I still use today. So I've never paid for accounting software. I've got a very affordable accountant, and I thought actually that could be useful for people and how to find that. CRM, sales tools, everything that I've ever utilized. I started it and I got to about 9:30 last night and I didn't finish it. So I was like, what I'll do is I'll come today and I'll say, if anyone wants it, if it's interesting to anyone, message me and I'll put everything that I've ever used, what I liked and what I didn't like, that's helped me over the last 7-8 years, and I'll give it to people if they want it.
That's fabulous. What a good wrap up. Well, thank you both. Yeah. Well, thank you both for firstly, all the things you do for team and my members, but also the stuff you do for the recruitment industry as well. And that's great advice, given honestly and openly, and really appreciate your support. I'm sure everyone today has really enjoyed that. Thank you very much, both. See you soon. I hope. All the best. Bye for now. Bye, everyone. Thank you.